Alrighty. Alrighty, folks. Welcome into Compute This and the After Schrock. I'm checking on the latest prices of the cryptos here real quick, so I have accurate information. It looks like Ethereum's come down a couple $100, but it's still 6% up in the last 24-hour period, which is pretty phenomenal. We're going to give everybody a moment to get connected while I send an email here on Ron, because if I don't, I will forget, and the Sunday winner will not get their $25, and that's always bad. Ron, 402-324-30. I'm saying his phone number out loud. Stop doing that. Oh, golly. It's one of those mornings. I didn't get a ton of sleep last night. I got to bed kind of late, about 12:30-ish. Got up about 5:40 to get ready for the show this morning, so it's been a little bit of an early morning, but I got enough sleep that I'm not punchy, which is good. All right, so let me get this refreshed, and then we can go ahead and get this party started. All right, so thanks for joining us here, for coming into the Aftershock and spending time with us in the morning. I appreciate it, guys. Hopefully that was a good show for you this afternoon, and we were able to get you some information that you maybe didn't otherwise get from other places. That's really the attitude that I'm trying to take with the segment I'm going to be doing later this week on KFAB on Tuesday the 11th from 2 to 6. I have to try to walk a line. I don't want to have a milquetoast show, because if you have a milquetoast show, no one wants to listen to it, right? And if you do something that's too controversial and cutting, I'm going to do damage to my business. So it's, I can't shock jock anybody, right? And so one of the things I was talking with my wife about this is just like, during Compute This, I put forward my opinions. During the Aftershock, I put forward my opinions. The show that I'm going to do on KFAB shouldn't necessarily be me putting forth my opinions. It should be me talking about the news of the day and allowing you to draw conclusions, maybe heavily influenced by my opinions behind the scenes, but nevertheless, it's not me dictating what anyone should think. And so I was thinking back to my good friend the late Kobe Mack and how he did his shows in Lincoln on 1400 KLIN when he was alive. He had an amazing radio show in the afternoon that talked about the local politics of the city, that talked about school board politics, that talked about all this stuff. And if you knew Kobe, you knew what his political leanings were. But if you listened to his radio show, you wouldn't have known. He literally brought the guests on, let the guests say their pieces. He asked questions that were difficult for guests sometimes to answer, which could lead you to maybe infer some opinions, but literally he let the guests do it to themselves for the most part. So I've got emails out to people. I've got a lot of business owners that are willing to be on the program to talk about the hiring situation right now in the community. It's bad. And it's not just bad here. We got a little bit of humor for you, some national politics humor surrounding the unemployment numbers. I don't want to give away the jokes yet, but we've got the audio, guys. We're gonna do our best Rush Limbaugh impersonation during that segment, and let the politicians speak for themselves, and let you listen to what the reactions of the Financial News Network people were, and you can judge for yourselves whether or not the jobs number was a disappointment, or what the spin is around it. So it's it's going to be a fun show, and so it's a lot of different things. It's a little bit of a Rush Limbaugh kind of. I'm not trying to be Rush Limbaugh, but just the way he organized his show. He never had guests on, but he had a lot of sound bites. So he never had like a guest appear on the show, and we will definitely have guests on the show. So it's a little bit of Kobe Mack and a little bit of Rush Limbaugh and a little bit of Thor Schrock coming together, hopefully for something that's unique, that is fun, that is informative, so that you can walk away from 4 hours of radio knowing something that you didn't know when you started. Walk away from that saying, just feeling like you had a good time. Nobody turns off a radio show and says, "Whew, I had a great time listening to that program. That was amazing." But, well, maybe they did, and it just never happened to me. That could be. But when you turn off the radio, I want you to think that you didn't just waste 4 hours of your life. And I want to give people a reason to tune back into that 4-hour segment, because I can't tell you how important it is that people listen to local radio. Because if people don't listen to local radio, advertisers don't advertise on local radio. And when advertisers don't advertise on local radio, then national advertisers take over. And if you have a national advertiser on local radio, you don't need local content anymore. You can run national content for your national advertiser. Then you end up with 24-hour-a-day syndicated programs. You know, Glenn Beck's not a bad guy to listen to in, you know, quantities, small quantities. Rush Limbaugh was amazing, right? Sean Hannity, you know, in quantities again. Mark Levin, you know, all these guys are great. And you could put together an entire radio station just with their talent, but it would be the same as every other conservative radio station out there. Literally, you could drive from radio bubble to radio bubble and get the same click, click, click content. Literally, sometimes I remember driving in, like, you would hear Rush Limbaugh's show because you would listen to it live, and then you'd run into some city where it's running on a tape delay, and you're like, I already heard this. You know, did I miss anything? You know, did I ever not pay attention? So I want to do something that's unique and different because that's what I want KFAB to be. That's what I think good radio should be. And yes, just like you shouldn't take your advice, your investment advice from the computer guy, maybe you shouldn't take your radio career, radio station development advice from the computer repair guy either. But I'm taking it seriously, and I want to make sure that I do a good job. Maybe, you know, I was surprised when they offered me the 4-hour slot. I wasn't asking for a 4-hour slot. I sent an email in to Scott and Josh and just said, hey, you know, if you need to fill some holes, some content holes, you know, I'm willing to come on. I can do 15 minutes on just about anything. If you have a hole in your show and you need it filled, let me know, and I'll help out. You know, it wasn't intended to be, you know, it's not a commercial for Schrock or whatever, just me. These guys have been good to me, so I'm going to try to help them out. Then Scott emails me back and says, yeah, you know, well, I'd like to give you a shot at the 4-hour slot. And I'm like, well, 4 hours a day is a lot of radio for a guy that has a real job. Not that being, that's the thing. I joke when I say real job because I actually asked, like, what's involved in a 4-hour radio shift? Like, what do you have to do as a professional radio person for 4 hours of radio? Because like everything, people hear the 4 hours of airtime and they think it's like, go. And then 4 hours later, done. Woo! But that's not it at all. So I can tell you, just lining up the guests and doing things like that from my show, I probably spent 3 or 4 hours already just on one show. And yes, maybe I'm putting a little too much effort into it. Could I pare that back every week for Compute This, I put in about 30 minutes of show prep effort before the program, the night before, to make sure that I'm current on everything that's going on, that I have everything top of mind, and then I go. And I write my show schedule and I go. So for 4 hours of radio, if I'm doing a half an hour for 1 hour, it'd be 2 hours of show prep for a 4-hour show every day. Then when the show is over, Delaney is telling me, well, then you have to record your sounders that run between the end of your show and the start of the next show. So what did we talk about this week or yesterday? What are we going to talk about tomorrow? So now I have to have my show prepped a couple days in advance, right? It's not the night before anymore. Now it's a couple days in advance, so that there's sounders that get people to listen to the program that's coming up. Teasing. So that's going to take another half hour, 45 minutes, depending on how well you stick it. I'm sure you get better with it over time. So 4 hours of radio, 2 hours of prep, and let's just say an hour of administrative tasks. That's a full-time job. That is a 40-hour work week. You know, maybe someday, but I think I'm content right now being the fill-in guy that pops his head in and fills a hole when he needs to be filled, and is capable of doing it. That's one of the big things. I want to know that I'm capable of doing that. I've never done 4 hours continuous on a terrestrial radio station. Never. I want to be able to say that I did that. I want to be able to say that I did it well. I want to be able to say that the listeners that were listening enjoyed the show. And then I want to stop. Because I've got other stuff to do. But no, I mean, maybe an hour, 2 hours a day could be manageable, but 4 hours a day, that's a lot of radio. That's a lot of radio. All right, so let's jump into some questions here. Good morning, Mary. Good to have you with us. Good morning from Grand Island, says Mark. Good morning, Mark. Nice to have you here. Top fan, Mary, by the way. Roger and Karen are with us. Thor, can you explain the pros and cons of Dogecoin and using Robinhood? All right. For those of you who don't know, Dogecoin, affectionately known as Doggy Coin, is a cryptocurrency. When cryptos were coming out, everybody was all goo goo gaga cryptos, whatever. Some people then, even some people even now, still think or thought it was a joke, right? And so, as a joke, some guy created a cryptocurrency coin that has no limitations on the number of coins that will ever be created. It has no use case. It's not like you can go spend your Dogecoin on anything anywhere. So he just created this crypto and launched it, and he put the face of his dog on it because the coin is a dog, right? And it became wildly popular. As it was a meme coin. It was a joke. I got I mined 12,000 Dogecoin last night. Woohoo! I have like a penny. Yeah, baby. Well, now if you mine those 12,000, let's say you had 12,000 Dogecoin. If you had 12,000 of those, the last quote that I saw was about 69 cents a coin. I haven't looked at it recently. Yeah, you have $8,280 in coin from one day's mining back in the beginning. And most people that have Doge don't have 12,000 Doge. They have like 40 or 100,000 Doge. And so when this starts getting to 60, 70, it used to be a fraction of a penny. Now it's up to 70 cents a coin. Some of these guys are like half millionaires now if they just sold their Doge, right? But of course, you never want to sell it because it's going to go higher in the future. I believe that about Bitcoin. I believe that about Ethereum. I am not buying any Dogecoin because Dogecoin has no use case. Dogecoin is a meme coin. Dogecoin is a joke. Now, and if you want to gamble with it, I listen to Stuart Varney, and his head just explodes about Dogecoin. So here's the thing. If you time it, if you get in, and then you make some money and you get out, you can make a tidy profit. You can just as easily cut your money in half. Easily. And of course, when you cut your money in half as a reasonable investor, you're gonna sell your Dogecoin. You're gonna get out. 50% loss is a lot. Even for crypto, that's a lot. I'm gonna get out. That's my stop loss. Well, the kids that have Dogecoin, they don't have stop losses. They're not professional investors. They're enthusiasts. They're not going to sell their Dogecoin because they think it's going to be worth more later. One of the segments I'm going to do, guys, on my wife and I went out to dinner on Friday. We went to Jay Gilbert's in downtown Omaha, amazing restaurant, delicious pork chop. I had the sirloin. It was great. It was beautiful to see them busy. It was the busiest we have seen that restaurant all through COVID. Every week we went to a restaurant. And we went to Jay Gilbert a lot. And sometimes we had an entire room, like a party room to ourselves, because there was just nobody there. Well, that's not the case anymore. It was beautiful to see. But I'm sitting at the table, right? And my wife and I are talking about, this is the time when we get to talk about adult things without kids around, right? So we're talking about retirement stuff, and we're talking about future planning stuff, and my wife has some cool ideas for things she wants to do, and we're talking about all these things. And it just pops into my head. Inflation is going to play a part in this. Now, whether you believe that massive inflation is coming or that just the standard run-of-the-mill 2% inflation is coming, right? I realize that in my brain, I have a deficit of historic understanding of what inflation or hyperinflation looks like. I mean, I know what the Weimar Republic, and you have wheelbarrows full of cash. I see Venezuela, where like literally, Alfonso shows me this picture. He goes, "This is how much it costs to buy a chicken." And it was a pallet of wrapped bolivars on a pallet. Literally, you have to lift it with a forklift to buy one chicken in Venezuela. So I understand that, where it just gets to the point of ludicrous, right? But in the 1970s, what happened? What happened then? Because it was a tough time, but it didn't get ludicrous. You didn't see people with wheelbarrows full of $1 bills walking around. You saw, weird disco music and big afros and cop shows where people slid over the hoods of fast cars. Now, that was what you saw in the 70s, right? So what was different about that? And I realized, I don't know. So I start reading on my phone. This article was so interesting. I read it out loud to my wife. I'm going to do a segment on the show on Tuesday about what the 1970s inflation looked like and it felt like, because it occurs to me at 44 years old, I was not alive for the majority of that inflationary period. And for the period that I was alive for, up to 80 or 82, I was like 8 years old. So I really wasn't thinking about macroeconomics, I bet there's a lot of people like me. I bet there's a lot of people out there that maybe remember that time. And I talked to my mom about it, and she says, "Oh my gosh, it was awful." But what happened? Why did it happen? What were the events surrounding it? And I have to tell you, as I read this story, guys, literally, you could have changed the names and run the story today, and it would have been completely plausible. Super conservative villain, Trump-like character guy. Super liberal, Great Society guy. Bad economic guy. Solution guy comes in after the fact to fix the problem. And in the meantime, what happened? And if you look at what happened before, lines up exactly. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, and it lines up pretty dang close to what's happening now. And then, after that, what happens next? So you can make a natural conclusion of what happens next. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a macroeconomist. I'm just a guy that read a story on the internet and thought, that sounds familiar. And then I went and double-checked the story and said, yep, sure enough, these things are historically accurate. These people, everything about this article is true. And it was eye-opening, literally eye-opening to me. So I thought it would be interesting to do a segment on it. So we're going to do a segment on that as well. So as far as Dogecoin and Robinhood and everything like that, I don't recommend Robinhood typically for cryptocurrencies. The reason why is you can't take your crypto off the platform. It's locked in. You can take dollars in and out of Robinhood, but you can't take crypto in and out. So if you are somebody who is purchasing cryptocurrency as a long-term investment, if you are somebody who is purchasing cryptocurrency because they want to be able to say they were part of something that literally your grandchildren are going to look at you and say, wow, I wish I was alive back then because I could have got a personal computer and mined some Bitcoin with a tablet. Man, that would have been cool to be able to do. And I'd have been so rich. That those are going to be the stories that grandkids are talking about with crypto. So if you want to be a piece of that story, you want to be able to say, I have a whole Bitcoin. Whoa, Grandpa, you have a Bitcoin? If you want that to be you, you don't use Robinhood to buy that stuff because you can't take it away with you. You can't transfer it to a private wallet. You have to keep it in Robinhood. But if you're someone who's going to day trade cryptos like Dogecoin, Robinhood's perfect for that. That's exactly what it was made for. So that's Dogecoin. That's Robinhood. I don't go to casinos for a reason. I adhere to the Navy SEAL rules of life. If you're going to do something, do it well and do it often. That's why I don't drink. That's why I don't go to the casino. That's why I don't do any number of vices that other people around me get to do all the time. And it never negatively impacts their lives. But for me, it would be a giant sucking sound down a drain, okay? So I avoid those things. So I'm going to avoid Dogecoin because, okay, let's say you buy $100 in Dogecoin, and let's say it doubles, right? Now you have $200. You took a huge risk on $100, could have easily been $50, and made it into $200. Congratulations, go have a steak dinner at Jay Gilbert's. Congratulations. Changed your life, right? No. Didn't change your life. Didn't make a dang bit of difference anywhere. You could have skipped eating out for a week and saved $100 if you eat out a lot. So to really do well with Dogecoin, maybe you have to buy $1,000 of Dogecoin. Well, now you've doubled to $2,000. Congratulations, you got yourself half a mortgage payment. You saved yourself half a month of mortgage payment. Good job. You risked $1,000 to save a half a month of mortgage payment. Well, then obviously the solution in Thor's brain is you have to spend $100,000 on Dogecoin. So when it doubles, then you have $200,000. That's enough money that you can actually create a new product, start another business, put away for, inject your retirement account with new life. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do with that kind of money. That's the way to go. And that is exactly when it goes down to zero for me. Every time. So I don't do it. I just don't do it. So I'm taking one for the team. You can play with it if you want to play with it. I wouldn't recommend Dogecoin unless your appetite for risk is insatiable. If you have a slot machine-like attitude for risk, Dogecoin is the crypto for you. I'll put it that way. Did I miss the segment on making phones faster? Loanne, you did not. You make your phone faster by making Dad's phone slower. You upgrade him to the most recent version of iOS, 14.5.1, and his phone will be slower than your old phone. So it was kind of a teasy segment, kind of a bubblegum segment, but it was to illustrate there's an issue with iOS 14.5.1 that is throttling the performance of $1,200 smartphones to make them perform exactly like the $400 models, or actually get beat by a $400 model. So it's something to keep in mind. There's going to be a 14.5.2, which just 2 weeks ago Apple said there probably wasn't going to be any more iterations to that version. Yeah, there's going to be another one now. Morning, Mitch. Good morning, Deborah. All right, Steve. Good morning, Thor. Please remind us of which VPN provider you recommend. I like ExpressVPN. They are about $100 a year if you pay annually. They are fast. You're not going to see a throttling of your internet speed. And it's very easy to use. They give you a push-button power thing for your phone. You can protect like 5 devices on one account. You have the app on your phone. You can set it to start when your phone starts. You don't even have to think about it then. It's always on. You push the power button and it turns on. Then on your computer, if you want it to start up with the computer, you set it to start up with the computer. It's running all the time. You never have to even think about it. And it's protecting you. Literally, it shields everything you do on your computer from everyone's prying eyes. Of course, there are exceptions. If you go to YouTube and you're signed into your YouTube account, you're going to get tracked. You allowed that to happen by signing into a Google account. You guys, I mean, I hate to say it, but ditch Chrome. It's just spyware. Gmail, just spyware. Very handy spyware. I still use Google Sheets, but not for anything that's personal or private. If I'm trying to manage a list of people for, people who need to get safe upgrades so we can call them, I'm going to use Google for that. If I'm, putting a retirement plan together, I'm not going to save that on my Google Drive. Just not going to do it. Hi, Aaron. Deborah, good morning. Happy Mother's Day to you as well. Randy, good morning. Got my wake-up juice. Ronald, if possible, could you talk current news and how technology helped or hurt? Use strengths. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. We don't hear a whole lot about this, but there is a huge deposit of rare earth elements just outside of Beatrice, Nebraska. It is epic how much rare earths are there. And the Department of Defense is very interested in getting a processing plant up and running so we can start extracting rare earths right here from Nebraska so we don't have to import them from China. Nebraska could have one of the clutch export industry, aside from food, one of the clutch technological exports of the 21st century in Beatrice, of all places. I'm not saying anything about who digs a mine in Beatrice. That's all I'm saying. That's like saying I'm going to dig a mine in Scotts Bluff. What are you, gypsum? What are you digging for? Water? All right. Richard's with us. Do your opinions just not super freely, but you have people calling in, let them talk, and you got the conversation. That's what I'm terrified about, Aaron. I'm terrified that I'm not going to get callers. There are a couple rules of thumb here. So first of all, when you have any transition for any reason on a radio station, again, I have to be really careful on air. The only topic I'm literally not allowed to talk about is Chris Baker. That's literally, and it's not like they've come down and said, don't talk about that. It's common sense. Don't talk about that. Because all you're going to do is you're going to get a host of people calling that are all ticked off at KFAB locally, which had no input on the decision, ticked off at local management, which again had no input on the situation. You're going to get more local advertisers upset, which again, locals couldn't stop. No one locally had any say in it. And therefore, the only say they have is who they're going to put on that spot in the future. I just want to leave the station better than I found it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not the great white savior of KFAB or anything. I just do no harm. That's all I'm saying. Do no harm. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some guests together that are going to be able to provide input and something interesting to listeners that you wouldn't normally hear. I'm trying to get somebody to come on the show to talk about the risks of taking the COVID-19 vaccination. And I have several people to choose from. And according to what I'm reading and hearing from them, there are significant risks. Anecdotally, what I'm seeing is a mixed bag, So we're going to talk about that on the show. I need to have somebody, though, advance the other. I can't just bash vaccines, right? I mean, I got to have somebody come on from a doctor come on and be like, you need to get your vaccines, right? because there is a case for getting vaccinated. So I'm not here to push an agenda. I'm not here to make people feel good or bad about getting vaccinated. But nobody is allowed to talk about the risks of vaccination. And when you have 3,479 people who are dead from this vaccine, when previous vaccines are pulled from the market with 50 deaths, what's going on that we can't even talk about it? That alone, you want to stop vaccine hesitancy? Allow people to talk about the risks. Allow people to feel like it's been discussed. It's been hashed out. It's not such a big deal. Maybe they'll be willing to get a vaccine instead of thinking that somebody's trying to hide something from them and get them to shoot some experimental drug into them that could have long-lasting impacts going into the rest of their lives with cranial thrombosis, strokes, things like that. Is that a real thing? I don't know. That's what we need to guess to figure out. I'm not a doctor. If you want to take your medical advice from the computer repair guy, not a good idea. Remember to talk about blueberry scones from Hy-Vee. Oh my gosh, I haven't been able to get them for days. Maybe I'll stop on the way home and try to pick some up. We'll see. The Hy-Vee blueberry scones are delicious, though. Please tell us about Starlink. Will that improve my pitiful internet connection from Dish? Oh yeah, big time. What happens to all these low Earth satellites? How long do they stay up there? Well, these satellites that Elon's throwing up there are tiny little satellites from a relative side, the size of a suitcase, which I was asking my wife yesterday, isn't that amazing? Why is something that small, that bright in the night sky? Why? And she was like, maybe because they're orbiting really low? I don't know. But it is available in Nebraska, actually. I went and checked my address the other day. It said it was available for our zone. It's $500 for the equipment up front. I think you have a 2-year commitment. And then it's $100 a month for the service. So I don't know what you're paying for dish service, but it's $100 a month. Internet speeds are sufficient to carry on Zoom conversations. They're sufficient to do any interneting that you would normally do, with maybe the exception of competitive gaming. The latency is a little bit high. It's better than Dish because of the number of satellites, and as they add satellites, the latency will go down even further. Latency is the time between when you click something and the signal goes whoop, whoop, back to you again. Doesn't make that sound, of course, but it goes up and comes back. That amount of time measured in milliseconds typically. The Dish latency can be measured in seconds sometimes, is my understanding. But this is measured in milliseconds, and you could have a Zoom conversation because it's brief. So $100 a month, you can sign up for it now. $100 a month, $500 up front to get the equipment, and you're on Starlink. And it's a beta, so you have to understand that there's going to be periods of time where there will be limited connectivity or even no connectivity as they do network upgrades and things like that. But yeah, all the way around, it's an amazing product that's going to... all of a sudden, you can live anywhere in the rural countryside you want to live, and you can have high-speed internet. That's the one thing that's been limiting me from buying a rural property, is I can't internet out in the country, and I need to be able to internet to do my job. Now, the world's open. Aaron, I like local radio. I like local radio too, Aaron. Good morning, Winston. Ronald Westman. Let's see. Thor, an interesting guy to listen to is Watchdog on Wall Street. He talks about financial matters from a political point of view. Okay. He's on WGBF at 2 p.m. today. They have an app. Okay, cool. I'll check it out. Poor video this morning, Mitch says. Yeah, I got the weird video error here again on my side too, but it seems to be streaming over here for me, so I'm just talking. Hopefully people are listening. All right. They're hard to find for a reason, the scones. Yeah, they are, because they're all getting eaten. All righty. Oh, Dogecoin dropped after Elon's Saturday Night Live appearance. Yeah, I haven't looked at the price this morning. I didn't know what it was. You might talk about difficulties in developing the Allen band. Yeah, I could talk about that. That would be definitely something we could talk about with the government getting in the way, basically, of developing a product. Talk about inflation, how it will affect all of us, also the risk associated with the COVID shot. Okay. I'm already seeing inflation. We are too, Aaron. We are too. In fact, I was talking to the lovely Kimberly on Friday at dinner, and I said, I wish we had a grocery store receipt from a year ago. Like, my parents save every plastic bag, or my dad used to. My mom saves every plastic bag they get. They have a bag full of bags, and when that one gets full, they have another bag full of bags. And it's like, in there's got to be one grocery store receipt that has like a gallon of milk on it and a loaf of bread from 1 year ago, like pre-COVID, like January-ish. I want to see what the price is today. because the problem we have is not just monetary inflation. Inflation is always ends up being caused by monetary policy. And what we have right now, though, is a conglomeration of factors coming together. You've got the monetary policy is there, but this is different this time because there are no cleaner shirts in the laundry basket. We're the cleanest shirt. So even if we pump a ton of money in, people still want our money because everyone else's money is just as worthless. So, but then you have a supply chain shock. Places, we can't make enough stuff to fill up the pipelines and catch up. And then because we're trying to do that, there's not enough trucks to move the stuff. And now their pipelines are shut down due to cyber attack. All these are going to cost energy costs and food costs to go way up. Manufacturing costs are going up. Inputs, they're saying copper is set to double this year is what I was reading yesterday. So if you're investors, make sure you got some commodity plays. Make sure you got some copper and some lithium and some cobalt and some rare earths, and some palladium. Make sure you got whatever basket aggregator. I'm not a financial guy. Make sure you've got something that covers that index, The price of lumber, yeah. Ronald says the price of lumber, a 2x4 used to cost $1, now it costs $11 at Menards. Absolutely right. And you know why it's that high? It's not because there's a shortage. The lumber yards are full of cut 2x4s, ready to go, ready to get on a truck and go straight to your local Menards and drop those prices down. The problem is there's not enough trucks, not enough truck drivers. Seems you can make more money sitting at home. Imagine that. Gotta stop or I won't have a show to talk about later. Let's see. Would be interesting one day if you could discuss how to mine crypto, basics, hardware, etc. Yeah, KJ, I've sat down and tried to do that show like 3 times, and I ended up scrapping it each time because it is so incredibly technical. So many different ways to do it. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. There are efficient ways and inefficient ways. But yeah, maybe, and that's the thing, if you do a dumbed down version, if I do a version that says, okay, install nice hash on your computer and it'll mine with whatever hardware your computer has that can mine with, and you'll get paid in Bitcoin, it'll be fractional Bitcoin. You're not going to make a ton of money here. You might make $100 a month in Bitcoin, but still if Bitcoin doubles in the next year, you got $200 now, right? So, and all you're doing is letting your computer sit there and do its computer thing. You're not really, you burn in a little more power, but that's it. It's literally money from nothing as long as crypto goes up, right? So I could do a show like that, but that would be the show right there. I just did it. We could sit here and talk about ways to invest and grow your $100 crypto fortune. If you put it into, BlockFi, for example, at an 8% interest rate, guess what? Tomorrow or a year from now, you'll have $108. Katie bar the door. But you got to start somewhere. You're right. And so it's challenging to have that conversation without knowing everyone's technical level of expertise. And I feel like if I did that show, I'd be talking to about 7 people, talking about, get your, let's see, a 3070 RTX graphics card earns about $10 a day on good days with nice hash and about $6 a day on bad days. At an estimated retail cost of almost triple the normal retail, so $1,400 for the card, you're looking at making a return on investment in about 6 months, not counting electricity cost, of course. That would be your break-even point. I had a guy send me an email and ask me, like, literally, should I spend $10,000 in crypto or should I buy hardware to mine crypto for $10,000? I told him to buy the crypto straight up because mining crypto is not easy. Things break. Power supplies fail. I got a miner in my mine that's been down for a day now because I haven't been able to get there to replace the power supply. Graphics cards, fans quit. Cards smoke. Power supplies fail. Motherboards stop working. Internet connections get interrupted. There's any number of things that can go wrong in a crypto mining thing. And it's always easy when you get one device and you're like, woohoo, I'm mining. And then you try to scale that to 30 devices and then it gets real wonky real quick. Winston says, what's the benefit of using Signal if none of my friends are on it yet? Well, Winston, there's a button that says invite. So when you set up Signal, if you have an iPhone, you have iMessage as your primary instant messaging app. That is, you can't change that on an iPhone. So to use Signal on an iPhone, you have to open Signal and send a message with Signal. And when people send a message back, if they are using Signal, it will come to your Signal app. If they're using iMessage, it's going to come to your iMessage, and there's nothing you can do about that. On Android, you can actually set Signal to be your default messaging app. Now, the thing is, with iMessage, you already have an encrypted messaging app. It's encrypted by Apple, and Apple can't read your messages either. So if you're on an iPhone, there's a lot of people say there's really no reason, as long as you trust Apple, there's no reason to use Signal if you're on an iPhone. That's the gist of it. Whether or not that's true, you're not all of your messages, only Apple to Apple messages are encrypted. If I text my wife from my Android, that comes to her iPhone unencrypted because it's coming through the cellular network and not the iMessage network. If we're both on Signal, everything we send back and forth is completely encrypted, and when I die, she doesn't even have to burn my letters like Martha Washington. She just she just deletes the Signal app and it's all gone. So the benefit is if you install Signal on your phone, you can still, from Signal, send messages to other people who don't have Signal, and it will come through as a regular text message on their phone. But then, if you have people you talk to a lot, Signal will eventually pop up and say, you want to invite this person to Signal? You talk to them a lot. And you tap that button and it sends them a text message that says, let's switch to Signal. And I've gone from having virtually no friends on Signal when I installed it to having 67% of my text messages now go through Signal, which is phenomenal because my wife doesn't use Signal. She's an Apple phone. Now, downside. Signal is a third-party app, so it has downtime. 2 nights ago, I tried to text my wife something, and 9 hours later, the text went through. Because Signal is free, and it does have infrastructure that maintains everything. It is not. They're not Apple. They're not Google. They're not Samsung. They're a nonprofit organization. I did kick them $20 as a 501c3 charity. I opened my wallet and gave $20 because I use the app a lot. I don't know if $20 is good, low, high, whatever, but I wanted to support their work. Alrighty. What kind of rare minerals? Oh my gosh, I knew someone was going to ask me that. Beatrice rare earth deposit. Okay. Let's see, here we go. Okay, I don't want to subscribe to the World Herald right now, and I can't read the story if I don't subscribe to the World Herald. So fun times there. Get me out of your paywall. All right, let's take a look at the Beatrice Daily Sun. Maybe there's a paywall there too. No, but it won't let me in with an ad blocker, so we leave that one. Journal Star is going to be the same as the World Herald because they're pretty much the same company now. All right, let's see. There are 15 elements with atomic numbers through 57 to 71, from lanthanum to lutetium, plus yttrium, yttrium, which are chemically similar. So yeah, there are a bunch of elements that you've never heard of before, but they're incredibly important in manufacturing cell phones and microchips. So yeah, if you don't have rare earths, you can't build missiles. We look at what the chip shortage has done to the automotive industry. You can't build tanks, you can't build anything without those microchips. And these microchips that we're short right now aren't even good ones. These are like the 30 nanometer, they look like a saltine cracker on a circuit board. They're huge. The ones that these rare earths can make are the 7 nanometer and 5 nanometer chips of the future that are going to be the things that really change the world. Let's see, here we go. Maybe I'll call and ask about what kind of computer jobs a 50-something-year-old person who didn't go to college could do. What kind of classes to take now? Aaron says. Okay, well, Aaron, the biggest thing I always found with computers and technology, and I think that the world might be moving this way. Maybe I was just ahead of my time, but it's not what they say it's what you can do. So you could walk in the door. You can walk into one of my service centers with a master's degree or a doctorate, and I would pick a kid with a GED over you that could fix a computer. It's not about what piece of paper you have. It's about what you can do. So in a lot of ways, it's close. It's similar to the trades. Fixing computers is very similar to trade work, like a plumber or an electrician. It's not about how smart you are or what you think you know how to do. It's what you can actually, if I put pipe in your hand, what you can do with it. If you can plumb things properly, then great. Yeah, I need you. If you can electrify things, yeah, great. I need you. You can fix computers, yeah, great. I need you. So the best thing to do, the number one thing to do, is to get that hands-on experience. You're not going to get that in a classroom. Unfortunately, you can take classes all day long. I have people applying for coding jobs. I went to the Omaha School of Coding, or I went to code school in Omaha. And you're like, I don't care what school you went to. I don't care if you went to any school at all. Can you code? Now, of course, I have trained people working for me that enforce standards, there's nothing as sloppy as an untrained coder, but sometimes that natural, that nascent ability to visualize what you want to do and translate it into code in your mind and then put the code down on a screen, that you can't train. That lots of people want to have it, and not a lot of people have it. If you find somebody with that, then you train them. If you find somebody who doesn't have that, can they learn to code? Of course they can learn to code. Are they going to create a great app or the next great big thing? No. Because they can't visualize it. They can't think outside the box. They can say, oh, I want to automate a task. And even with some of my coders, sometimes they're like, Thor, we can't do that. And I'm like, well, we have this and we have that. And I understand that from this and that, we can't get over here. But with this extra piece of information down here, we could infer this, which gets us there. And they're like, yeah, I see that. Let's do that. It'd be amazing. So sometimes you need all the different types, Aaron, but that's what I would recommend. And Aaron's now, I want blueberry scones. They're really good. Now I'm going to get to Hy-Vee, they'll all be gone. And another option is T-Mobile 5G internet. Yep, that's true. You can get Wi-Fi or wireless internet on a cell phone. Starlink, what about weather problems? Satellite reception has always had problems with that. That's true because Dish and other things have 1 or 2 or 3 satellites in orbit. Starlink is going to have hundreds of satellites in orbit, covering different zones, different angles. So the theory is while tree cover and, of course, completely overcast skies could be a problem, you would pretty much have to have a storm that covers the entire center of the United States to lose your internet. And yeah, you've had those. Those do happen, but they're not a daily occurrence. All right. I order groceries online. I save the receipts in my email because I have an app. I should go look at my email receipts. Oh yeah, Aaron, definitely. If you've got an email receipt and if you got a grocery store receipt, you can send me from January 2020-ish or December 19, somewhere like that. I'd be real interested to take a look at that because officially the U.S. dollar has inflated only 2 cents in the last year. So according to official inflation calculations, $1 in the year 2020 has lost 2 cents of its purchasing power today. So it's worth 98 cents today. But I'm going to the grocery store and my bills are through the roof, much more than 2 cents difference. All right, why not talk about things like why lumber is so expensive? Yeah, that'll be part of it. Let's see. They might not have enough people working to cut the trees down. Yeah, that was one of the reasons the shortage. Everybody assumed all the lumber yards cut their staffing because they said no one's going to be buying lumber because of COVID. But then everybody went on a home improvement binge and they sucked all the lumber out of the pipeline. Let's see. Bank of America said last week the U.S. will be entering a period of hyperinflation. What should we be doing about this to prepare for it? That's the subject. I can't do that one right now because you're stealing my thunder for Tuesday. Buy things you need that you can store easily. I bought 8 containers of coffee. It's supposed to be a coffee shortage. Yeah, well, there'll be shortages of everything if we get hyperinflation. So basically, the mindset for hyperinflation is spend your money today because it will be worth nothing tomorrow. People who are in a hyperinflationary environment, who have fixed interest rate debt, do extraordinarily well. If you have a mortgage, for example, and you're in a hyperinflationary environment, your interest rates don't go up, but the value of your home does dramatically, to the point where you could refinance it and pay off the entire mortgage potentially. It's pretty cool. Or you could pay off your whole mortgage with dollars that were inflated 10 or 20% higher. The people with revolving interest rates do terribly. So right now, for example, if you have a credit card, you're paying what, 25 to 29% interest, right? So it's prime plus something, and prime is virtually zero. So for credit card companies to get a return, it's prime plus 27% or something. Well, imagine if that interest rate went to where prime went to 20%. That happened in the 70s and the 80s. If prime goes to, it happened in the 80s, and the 70s caused it to happen in the 80s. If the prime rate went to 20%, your credit card interest rate could potentially be 49% interest. Now, of course, the plus amount would probably come down a little bit because 49% is admittedly ridiculous, but that illustrates how much worse off you're going to be. Because your credit card debt, let's say you have $20,000 in credit card debt that you're servicing, you're paying it down slowly over time, and you have an agreement that your interest rate is prime plus 29%, and then the prime rate goes to 20% virtually overnight. Your contract with the credit card company is you're going to pay 49% interest, compounding monthly. You never escape that trap. It's going to do some crazy things. So the idea is it's like a roaring 20s environment. Spend it today because tomorrow it'll be worth nothing. So buying anything of value, buying land, buying vehicles, buying anything that's durable, that will last, that will provide resources for the future is a good thing. Owning a business is a bad thing. Yep. Because the only way businesses can deal with hyperinflation is, you guessed it, raising prices. What happens when businesses raise prices? People buy less of what you sell. When people buy less of what you sell, you have less revenue. You have less profitability, which means the value of your company goes down, which is why stocks do not do good in hyperinflationary environments. So, yep, your stock market fortune is going to go down and go away too. What do you do with that, right? On the positive note, there was a substantial decrease, and I say positive with sarcasm, a substantial decrease in the number of Social Security recipients this year. You could imagine why. Yeah. Now would be the time to get a bidet installed in your bathroom if you don't want to stockpile toilet paper. That's true. Yeah, you get the squirting. Oh, golly. How does one translate job experiences I have had to what I can do on a resume? I would focus on specific projects. So whenever somebody tells me they work someplace, some of the tricks of the trade that I see, I cover a lot of resumes. And when we look at resumes, I could do an entire show on stupid ass resumes that people send me with stuff that's just dumb. Like, I am highly competent and have, somebody was like, I basically catch all my own mistakes, and they misspell mistakes. It's just like stuff like that. On your resume, don't include years of employment, especially if you had a break for COVID. Don't say what date you started, and don't say what date you finished. Say you were with IBM for 17 years. And underneath that, major accomplishments of employment. Boop, 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 boop. This is what I did for my employer to help them on their journey. And make sure that those specific things you list are applicable to the employer that you're applying to. The days of sending out one resume and making 100 copies of it and just handing them to employers, those days are over. If people want to apply to Schrock, I need somebody who is a problem solver. I need somebody who is a nimble thinker. I need somebody who can talk to people and is great with customer service. I need somebody who can understand that we're a small business and we don't have infinite amounts of money to order and reorder and tolerate mistakes. So I need somebody who can make a mistake once and learn from it and not make the mistake again. Those 4 traits, when we hire somebody, we give them 90 days to show us they can do those things. And honestly, we know within 3 weeks whether you're going to make it 90 days or not. Some people got it, some people don't. And I would love to sit here and develop people and say, well, if we only work on them a little bit, but it ends the same exact way every time. The employee you're attempting to develop gets marginally better. If you hire someone who's I call it a gopher. You hire a gopher, and the gopher is somebody who's just going to do all the jobs that nobody else wants to do. But you don't want to just keep them in the gopher position forever. As they learn about the organization, you want them to learn and grow and increase their skill set so they can contribute more to the organization. But as you're trying to train this gopher to do things, it's resisting. It's harder. They're not getting it. They need more reps. They need 10 reps instead of 2. And then they still make mistakes. So they don't show up on time, or they don't take it seriously, or they don't understand that when you talk to customers, you can't say things like, dude, man, that's lame. You can't be like that. You have to talk like an adult, okay? So you don't understand any of that. And so you work with them and you work with them and you work with them for 2 years. And at that point, they're just part of the organization. They're a fixture. It's like the gnome in the garden, right? They're there all the time. You count on them being there. It's comforting to have them there with you. They do all the things you don't want to do, right? And they're getting a little better. He does a little bit better than he did 2 years ago. I can almost leave him here alone now. Almost. After 2 years. Meanwhile, the other guy that we hire, in 1 month, is like able to take a shift if we needed him to. We wouldn't ask him to, but he could. So at some point, a business owner has to decide, why do I keep the gopher around when I can, for the same price, have that guy? I just have to take the time to see that I've got the wrong people in the wrong seats on the bus. And as much as I like my gopher, as much as he's a good guy, as much as I know him and I like him and he's fun to talk to and I enjoy having him with me in the shop, I need a performer. I need somebody who can do the job. So when you're handing out resumes, focus on the fact that you can do the job, that you understand what the company does, that your skill set is unique and will add a dimension of support to that company. If I'm hiring a coder, I want somebody who can manage a project from start to finish with minimal management assistance. That right there is enough to make me go, wah! Because I have to tell you, I am frustrated with our Drive Advisor project. Every time we get a coder working on it, they get about 90% through it, and it just doesn't get across the finish line. So we've hired another coder, and he's being introduced and inducted into the team, and then he's going to be handed this project, among other projects, to finish it and be done with it so that we can move on with life. Wouldn't that be awesome? And we can give a new product to our customers that tells you if your battery is dying too. It's a revenue stream for Schrock. It's a service for customers. It's a win for everybody. If I could just get it out the door. All right. Got to roll, guys. 51 minutes in, but it's Mother's Day, so I got to get home. I've got to take care of the lovely Kimberly and give her an entire day of my undivided attention without children so that she can relax and have a good Mother's Day. Of course, they all say that. Then they want to hang out with them, and they feel bad for not hanging out with the children the next day. But everybody needs a break, especially when you have a special needs kiddo at home. It can grate on you a little bit. So I got to get home and do that stuff. But I will talk to you guys on Tuesday. I would really appreciate it if you all tune in on Tuesday from 2 to 6, 1110 KFAB. You can listen on the iHeart app. You can also just go to KFAB.com and listen there as well. The other thing is, at times during the show, I'm going to ask for callers. And I do not know what to expect. I don't know how many people are listening. I had Slate Advertising pull the numbers. They tell me that the 2 to 3 o'clock slot is the busiest time slot for that show. 2 to 3? It's busier in the afternoon. I suppose their data goes back a year, so 2 to 3 is busier because no one's driving at 5 last year. Okay, there was no drive time. Well, now drive time's coming back maybe someday. I don't know. So I don't know which hour is going to be the busiest, which hour is going to be, what. So I'm writing up the schedule. I'll let you know. But Tuesday at 2, if you could be there, I'd appreciate it. And if you could call in with questions and comments, you'd be a real blessing. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Have a happy Mother's Day, and we'll see you next weekend.